As President Bola Tinubu marks his midterm in office, he has reflected on the progress made in steering Nigeria towards socio-economic development. Now, despite inheriting a complex economic landscape, he noted that his administration has made strides in implementing policies aimed at long-term growth. In his statement, the president acknowledged the sacrifices made by Nigerians, particularly in the short term, as his administration's policies continue to shape the country's economic trajectory. While reaffirming his commitment to these policies, the president noted that he recognized their impact on the populace. Meanwhile, the president's statement has raised questions about the sustainability of his policies and their potential to drive meaningful change in Nigeria's socio-economic landscape. To talk about this, we're joined by Senior Special Assistant to the President on New Media, O'Tega Ogra, for his take on the President's policies and its impact on Nigerians in the last 2 years. Thank you for joining us. I mean, you are with the team, so you might have some inside knowledge to share with us. It seems the consensus within the administration is that the president has done really well. So let's not look at that. Let's look at your thoughts on some of the most significant challenges facing President Tinubu's administrations in terms of its policies that it has put forward.
Thank you very much. Like the president said in his statement today, the journey is not over yet, but the direction is very, very clear. And so is the resolve of Mr. President and his team, to see us through the worst. Like he also alluded to in his statement this morning, we were faced with a very interesting challenge upon taking office, which was the devil and the deep blue sea. It was either, we, for the first time in our life as a nation, fixed long-term solutions, we provided long-term solutions to long-term problems, or we were faced with, runaway inflation, a crippling debt crisis, which had already seen us spending 98%, almost 100% of every naira that we earned as a country on debt servicing, and which is now reduced to 40%. So for me, the most important thing is the surgery has been done. It's not been easy. It's not been easy for Nigerians. It's not been a smooth ride. But I mean, we are gladdened by the numbers that we are seeing. I was listening to the last speaker speak, and he said, when he was talking about the debt crisis and everything, and they also mentioned Nigeria's GDP. In actual fact, Nigeria's GDP, by purchasing power parity, which is a very concise and more accurate representation of the purchasing power of your naira, despite the inflation rates, the FX rates and inflation, is at the highest it's ever been in the last 2 decades of our life as a nation. I think it's about $1,400 now, the GDP PPP. What that means is your naira can buy 3 times what it will buy, of the same income will buy in any other country of the world, which is something significant for us. So there's still a long way to go. We're looking at increasing the growth rates over the next few years. We're looking at further investments in infrastructure, further investments in healthcare, agriculture, technology, even security and defense, and a whole lot of other areas. And I believe that with the continued support of Nigerians, which we have enjoyed so far, the sky's the limit for Nigeria and this administration.
All right, you are as I say, on New Media, so I guess this question is appropriate to ask. If you go on social media, you go do a street vox pop, there seems to be an overwhelming concern about the hardship and the suffering that some of these policies from the presidency has inflicted on the people. But from your angle, you seem to be more of hope and optimism. Is there a disconnect here that bothers you? If yes, what will be done about addressing it?
So I'll be the first to say the complaints of Nigerians or a section of Nigerians are valid. But at the same time, you need to understand, you cannot put a bandage on an open sore or a festering sore whose roots is deeper than the surface. that was the hard decision that President Bola Tinubu had to take. And, you know, His Excellency President Bola Tinubu is probably the only Nigerian politician living that has the capacity to make the kind of hard decisions that we have taken, because they are very necessary for the economy and for Nigerians in general, because that's the path to a sustainable future. That's the path to sustainable prosperity. Coming to, you know, feedback of people and everything, by virtue of my role, I sit down and I get a lot of data every single day from hundreds of millions of, you know, posts, tweets, you know, websites, blogs, and everything. And we analyze this data on a real-time basis. Coming into office, there was a huge trust deficit between the government and the people, which was as high as, you know, the trust deficit was high as 80%. In the past 2 years, that trust deficit has dropped significantly to about 56%. And why? It's simply because you have a lot more Nigerians who are willing to, you know, they've been able to see that the president is truthful, is someone who is committed to what he has planned to do, and they are able to see the results of some of these actions. In my role, I would choose not to, you know, rely on, you know, feelings, because there's data, they had data which we can see and we can review. Secondly, the president has shown that he's a good listener and is open to constructive criticism. And we've seen where he has, you know, made policies for Nigerians that either the National Assembly or the general public, you know, have raised one or two issues, and we've gone back to the drawing board, you know, to rework these policies. Case in point, the students' loan.
I'm sorry to interject. We're time pressed, and I needed to ask your thoughts on the government's efforts towards tackling corruption across sectors in Nigeria. Also, how do you perceive the effort to promote transparency and accountability? You said yourself that the president is open to constructive criticism, but is that something that is actually being put in practice? When people make recommendations, there is a review.
Yeah, on the case of corruption, this government is very, very strong on corruption. Gone are the days when we only fought corruption on a remedial basis. Today, we are fixing the systems. We are creating, you know, we're bringing in automation to a lot of governments, you know, the government treasuries, to a lot of government work and everything. And that is reducing, you know, room for corruption. If you do that at the source, then the chances that someone in government or someone will be able to co-opt another person to be corrupt, you know, it's greatly reduced. Secondly, I'm sure you can see the gains that the EFCC and the ICPC and other anti-corruption agencies have made in terms of pursuing cases of corruption that they have, and not just at the political level alone, even amongst the general populace. And they're making gains there, and we are equipping them. We are making sure that they can do their job better with little to no interference from government. Another area we're fighting corruption is by strengthening regulatory agencies across board. Today, you hardly hear of any regulatory agency in Nigeria, you know, having unnecessary executive interference. That is one of the ways by which we strengthen our institutions to ensure that even beyond the lifetime of this administration, you know, the systems are able to fight corruption in themselves. So in the case of corruption, I think that's how much I would say. But generally speaking, the government of President Bola Tinubu, you know, what we have done so far for Nigerians is to ensure that whatever we're putting in place, you know, whatever we're doing is backed by law, it's guided by, you know, by the proper regulations and proper acts of the National Assembly. And Nigerians can be so sure that even after the tenure of Mr. President, you know, we will be able to say as a country that, yes, we have a strong foundation upon which to build in Nigeria we can all be proud of.
I want you to speak. You said, I mean, the government is responsive to constructive criticism. There's been a lot of controversy around the student loan initiated by this administration. As recent as about a month ago, we had conversations here. What has been the criticism of the student loan, as laudable as it may seem, and what do you think has been done to address those concerns to keep longevity, as you hope to, after the administration we continue to enjoy the student loan?
So, so far, I think the student loan, NEL Fund in particular, they've done pretty well. And I'm going to give credit to Mr. Sawyer and his team. They've done excellently well. Most of the entire process for the students, on which we have about 500,000 Nigerian students currently on and currently enjoying, most of the transactions there are automated, right from the point of your registration up to the point where monies are disbursed directly to your school, and or money is your upkeep allowance is disbursed directly to your own personal account. Yes, we have seen a couple of complaints where some students came online to say, hey, they think that some schools have been charging them a lot more by putting certain other fees, which would have been optional, into the school fees. But I'm sure we've listened quite a number of times to the CEO of the NEL Fund speak about this quite some time in the past 3-4 weeks. And it is very clear that has been, a meeting was called between the schools, the Ministry of Education and the NEL Fund, and they've been able to, fully clarify what should be put as part of students' school fees and the rest. But I must say I'm pretty impressed coming from the private sector. This is something that, even though I'm in government, I never gave it as much, chance in terms of the systems and processes working. But I am thoroughly impressed at the way it's gone, and I think we should give them all the support. Nigerians have to keep giving them all the support that we can give them. And one thing that is most instructive is Mr. President is very keen on bequeathing a credit economy to Nigerians. And one of the ways by which we start to teach our young people how to manage credit, how to manage their credit scores, this is aside Credit Corps and the Nigerian Credit Guarantee Company, is through the students' loan, because now you're teaching young people to be able to responsibly manage their finances. You leave school, you get 2 years, a 1 or 2 year moratorium, or until you get a job before you start to pay back. That gives everyone, that's leeway to be able to go to school without the fear of paying school fees or anything. And it gives parents additional disposable income, to put back in the economy, which is why we're seeing volumes increase for FMCG companies. We're seeing volumes increase for other manufacturers and people within the country.
Listening to you, it is definitely a laudable project, but of course the issues around it, the concerns that are being raised, need stronger attention. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Attention that they need. Thank you very much.